Hello, everybody. This video is going to go over your close read assignment for Rikki Tikki Tavi. We're going to look at the writing prompt and then also our focus questions and our annotations, which should be done before attempting the writing prompt. So to begin, let's first start off by looking at what our test is going to ask us to cover. A coming-of-age story focuses on the central idea or theme of a young person growing and changing by solving a problem, undertaking a mission, or accomplishing a goal. How could Rikki Tikki Tavi be considered a coming-of-age story? Ask yourself, what problem does Rikki solve? What mission does Rikki undertake? And what does Rikki accomplish by the end of the story? Make sure to use the race format and to keep your response concise, somewhere between 7 to 9 sentences. So our prompt is asking us, how could the story of Rikki Tikki Tavi be considered a coming-of-age story? And again, looking at the story, this type of story has the theme or lesson or central idea of showing how a young person, in this case a young mongoose, grows up and changes. So we should track Ricky's progress from beginning to end of story. How does he change from a young mongoose into a more mature mongoose? With that, let's click on our Read tab so we can see our focus questions. All of these will be answered as annotations in your digital text. So to do that, at the top where it says Skill Focus, we'll click Split Screen. This allows us on our left-hand side to see the focus questions and on the right-hand side to make our annotations. Our annotation button is orange, which means it's on. Let's also turn on our numbers. That way we can refer to paragraph numbers instead of actually counting them out. With that, let's look at our first question. As you reread Rikki Tikki Tavi, highlight the words frighten and frightened as they are used in paragraphs 6 through 8 in the text. So already I know I should go to paragraph 6 through 8, and I should be on the listen or the lookout for these two words. How does the repetition of the word indicate that fear or overcoming fear may be a clue to the main theme or lesson of the story? As always, use the annotation tool to paraphrase your ideas. So right here in the question, they're kind of giving us a hint as to what the lesson of the story is. A lesson in this story is that you should overcome your fear. So how do we see this idea of overcoming fear? Let's listen for frighten and frightened. Now, said the big man, he was an Englishman who had just moved into the bungalow. Don't frighten him, and we'll see what he'll do. Right here, we see that word the first time. Let me drag all the way across. Don't frighten him, and we'll see what he will do. The big man is telling his son not, and I'll say his son Teddy, so we know his name, not to frighten Rikki and to watch what Rikki will do. With that, I'll press Create Note. You'll notice the text changes to whatever color you chose. As a review, you can click on what you've highlighted. You can see what your annotation was. If you need to edit it for any reason, click the Edit button. You can change the color. You can add to the text. And again, when done, press Save Note. So we've seen our first instance of frightened or frightened. Let's see if it's repeated. It is the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he is eaten up from nose to tail with curiosity. The motto of all the mongoose family is run and find out, and Rikki Tikki was a true mongoose. He looked at the cotton wool, decided that it was not good to eat, ran all around the table, sat up and put his fur in order, scratched himself, and jumped on the small boy's shoulder. So right here, I hear the word again, It is the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he is eaten from nose to tail with curiosity. So, what do you learn about mongooses? Mongooses do not get or feel frightened often. They are very curious creatures. What do I learn about Ricky? Ricky is not easily scared or frightened. You find out and you hear he is a true mongoose. We'll create that note. And notice what happens at the end of 7. Ricky runs all around the room and he jumps on Teddy's shoulder. Now remember, at this point in the story, Ricky is a wild animal, and this wild animal jumps on the boy's shoulder. "Don't be frightened, Teddy," said his father. "That's his way of making friends." "Ouch, he's tickling under my chin," said Teddy. Ricky looked down between the boy's collar and neck, snuffed at his ear, and climbed down to the floor, where he sat, rubbing his nose. "Good gracious," said Teddy's mother, "and that's a wild creature. I suppose he's so tame because we've been kind to him." Here's the last instance in this little section. We went a little bit farther than 8. "Don't be frightened, Teddy," said his father. I want to drag this all the way to the end of the sentence. Ricky jumps on Teddy's shoulder, and Teddy is told not to be afraid. Teddy and Ricky become friends. I want to talk about the repetition of this word frightened. We've seen it shown 3 times, and in all cases, we've seen our characters told, "Do not be frightened, do not frighten that creature." And in the end, maybe repetition of the word frightened is supposed to lead us into a theme. And like what we saw, fear or overcoming fear may be a clue to the main theme or central idea or lesson of the story. Something I could say, the repetition of the word frightened leads me to believe that, I'm going to put it in quotes, fear is something to be overcome. So possibly a lesson of this story is not to let fear control your life. Teddy doesn't let it, and in the end he gets a pet. Ricky doesn't let it, and in the end he gets a family. And with that, create note. So one more time, Ricky jumps on Teddy's shoulder, and Teddy is told not to be afraid. Teddy and Ricky become friends. The repetition of the word frightened leads me to believe that fear is something to be overcome. And with that, create note. And in the end, this wild animal does become the house pet. You see Teddy's mother say it right here, "Good gracious, that's a wild creature. I suppose he's so tame because we've been kind to him." So they get Ricky as kind of like this dog or cat, this pet for their family. With that, let's move on to question number 2. How does Ricky Tikki behave like a young child in paragraph 17? So remember our prompt. We're looking at a coming of age story. So how does a young person grow up and show maturity? So how does Ricky behave like a young child in paragraph 17? So even though he's a mongoose, what kid-like characteristics does he have? What might his behavior suggest about how he might change by the end of the story? So how is he going to grow up? Highlight words and phrases in the text that support your response. As always, use the annotation tool to jot down your ideas. So let's look at paragraph 17. Where do I see Ricky being childish? Early in the morning, Ricky Ticky came to early breakfast in the veranda, riding on Teddy's shoulder. Well, already he's riding on Teddy's shoulder. If you think about like a little kid might sit on their dad's shoulder walking around like a theme park or a mall. So one example of Ricky acting childish. Because it's a new question, let me change the color. Really for no reason. Let me just change it to purple. And create note. Actually, a little typo right here. I have a capital I. He sat on all their laps, one after the other, because every well-brought-up mongoose always hopes to be a house mongoose someday and have rooms to run about in. Well, here's another instance. He's sitting on everybody's lap, kind of like a little dog would do. So like a little lap dog. Using purple again. Another example of Ricky acting childish or pet-like. And again, we hear every well-brought-up mongoose always hopes to be a house mongoose someday and have rooms to run about in. And Ricky's mother, she used to live in the general's house at Segawali, had carefully told Ricky what to do if he ever came across white men. So we see two instances here in paragraph 17 of him acting childish, riding on Teddy's shoulder like a little kid and a dad, and then sitting in everybody's laps. Why is he doing this? Why isn't he acting more wild? Well, what we hear, he's a well-brought-up mongoose, and the goal of all mongooses is one day to be a house mongoose. He does not want to be a wild animal forever. So what we learn about Ricky, and really we find out because his mother taught him his goals, why he wants to stay with this family. Ricky is acting well behaved because the dream of all mongooses, I should say of all well brought up mongooses, is to become a house mongoose with a family to protect. So notice, Ricky is acting childlike, but he is well brought up, he is well behaved. Now, why? Because the goal of all mongooses, again, are to be a house mongoose. This means Ricky will have to protect this family. Now, by the end of the story, will I see an instance of Ricky protecting the family? Yes, we've read the story multiple times, and we know there are 3 instances where he protects the family from 3 different snakes. Has to kill Karate, has to kill Nag and Nagina. So maybe a theme of this story, or a central idea to this story, is the fact of people growing up. Or in this case, Ricky growing up. Something we definitely see. And again, this is a coming of age story, and that is our prompt. So here is Ricky at the beginning. Now let's see him grow up. Question number 3. Why is Ricky Ticky proud of himself in the last paragraph of the story? How does the last paragraph express how much he has grown up? So I hear it repeated twice, last. So why is he so proud of himself at the end of the story, specifically in our last paragraph? Highlight the reasons for his proud feelings as expressed by Teddy's mother. So, okay, I should listen for specific dialogue. Use the annotation tool to list some adjectives, so words used to describe Ricky Ticky, how he was at the beginning of the story and how he's grown up at the end. So we won't do this part because we don't have the 2-column chart uh, on StudySync. We're just looking, why is Ricky so proud, and how does Teddy's mother describe his accomplishments? It tells us really, we're going to find this in the last paragraph, but I'm going to want to start here at 107 and then read through 111 to get you caught up. At this point, we're seeing the resolution of the story. All of the action has already taken place. Ricky again has killed all 3 snakes, and the family is safe and protected. When Ricky got to the house, Teddy and Teddy's mother, she looked very white still, for she had been fainting, and Teddy's father came out and almost cried over him. And that night he ate all that was given him till he could eat no more, and went to bed on Teddy's shoulder, where Teddy's mother saw him when she came to look late at night. "He saved our lives and Teddy's life," she said to her husband. "Just think, he saved all our lives." Rikki Tikki woke up with a jump, for the mongooses are light sleepers. "Oh, it's you," said he. "What are you bothering for? All the cobras are dead, and if they weren't, I'm here." Rikki Tikki had a right to be proud of himself, but he did not grow too proud, and he kept that garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never a cobra dared showed its head inside the walls. Notice we had to pay specific attention to Teddy's mother's dialogue. "He saved our lives and Teddy's," she said to her husband. "Just think, he saved all our lives." Let's change this to a different color. Let's go with orange. Teddy's mother. I should say Teddy's mother's dialogue. Sorry for my typo. Tells the reader that Ricky killed all of the snakes in order to protect his family. And I want to bring in back our note from focus question number 2. Just as a well brought up mongoose should. Fulfills that role, accomplishes his goal. Notice when Teddy's mother says that out loud, Ricky, he wakes up. Do I have to still protect my family? Who's there? What does he say? "Oh, it's you. What are you bothering for? All the cobras are dead, and if they weren't, I'm here." Notice Ricky is still attentive. Ricky is still attentive and watches over the family even after all of the snakes are dead. He even says right here, "And if they weren't, I'm here." Ricky says he promises to always keep them safe with his closing dialogue. Now that's an instance where if you were to mention that, you would want to put in the direct quotation, the direct evidence in order to explain that idea completely. So Ricky is still attentive and watches over the family even after all of the snakes are dead. Ricky says he promises to always keep them safe with his closing dialogue, as evident by him saying, "And if they weren't, I'm here." He is not leaving. Now we see this idea of him being proud, prideful, because He protects the family. Ricky had a right to be proud, but he doesn't grow too proud. And he kept that garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never a cobra dare showed its head inside the wall. So you hear, cobras never showed up again. He does not grow too proud. He's proud in this moment, but he's always watchful. This could be a lesson, another theme of the story. Ricky accomplishes his goal of keeping the family safe. The reader hears or reads that never a cobra dared show its head inside the walls. This shows me that Ricky kept the family safe. So he's not done. He continues to do this. What else do we learn? He did not grow too proud. A theme of the story could be not to, I should put that in quotes, not to become too proud of your achievements. I want to say something too, or your job's never really done, but we'll leave it at that. The theme of the story could be not to become too proud of your achievements. There's always going to be something more to do. You've got a right to be proud and be it, but do not grow too proud. Definitely something we learned from our main character, from Ricky. With that, let's move on to our final question today. Why is Ricky Tikki so determined to undertake the mission of destroying Nag and Nagina? What big idea or theme does his actions suggest? Highlight specific evidence from the text to support your statement of the theme, and then use the tool, as always, to to write the theme in a few brief words. So we've heard one idea, one possible theme, which we just saw here. Do not grow too proud. Your job is never really done. Now let's see, how could a theme be learned from this idea of Ricky wanting to destroy Nag and Nagina? With that, I'm going to want to scroll to paragraph 21. And in paragraph 21, what do we see? Well, let's start with 20. What is the matter? Asked Ricky Tikki. We are very miserable, said Darzy. One of our babies fell out of the nest yesterday, and Nag ate him. Said Ricky Tikki. That is very sad, but I am a stranger here. Who is Nag? From this little instance, we could see that there is an issue in the garden. We find out later, hey, Nag is a snake, and Nag has been eating the bird's eggs. This is Ricky's house. Ricky is going to want to protect the garden from the snakes. Here's where we see the initial conflict. Let's use our final color for today. We'll go with blue. Ricky is faced with the conflict of having to protect his family's garden from the cobras, Nag and Nagina. So our initial conflict, we must protect the birds. Let's see where this continues. Let's go to paragraph 32 now. 32. Ricky felt his eyes growing red and hot. When a mongoose's eyes grow red, he is angry, and he sat back on his tail and hind legs like a little kangaroo and looked all round him and chattered with rage. So at this point in the story, Ricky has been attacked by Naga Nagina. He barely escapes. He is upset, as you can see by his eyes. But Naga Nagina had disappeared into the grass. When a snake misses its stroke, it never says anything or gives any sign of what it means to do next. Rikki Tikki did not care to follow them, for he did not feel sure that he could manage two snakes at once. So he trotted off to the gravel path near the house and sat down to think. It was a serious matter for him. I'm going to make two different annotations here. Using blue, Ricky is upset. I should say angry, right? Furious. Angry and furious because Nag and Nagina tried to kill him. He doesn't run off because he has an issue, does not care to follow him because he doesn't think he could fight two snakes at once. So instead of rushing off in anger, he sits down and thinks because this was a serious matter. I see another conflict Ricky is faced with. Ricky is faced with the problem of having to fight two snakes by himself. Instead of rushing into a fight, he sits down to create a plan. If we're talking about the idea of Ricky growing up, we definitely see Ricky grow up here. He doesn't run into something when he's upset or angry. Instead, he sits down and he makes a plan. A theme that could be learned from Ricky's actions or choice behavior, from his behavior and choice, is not to do things out of anger. Not to do things out of anger. And we all hear that idea. You shouldn't rush into something when you're angry. If you write an email when you're upset, save it and then come back to it a day later. So don't do something out of anger. Definitely we see my little mongoose growing up here, not doing something childish, which in the end could have really killed him. Let's move on to our last paragraph. So first we hear Ricky wants to protect the garden because the snakes are eating the bird babies. Then in 32, we gotta protect the garden because Naga and Nagina have tried to kill Ricky. He's got to defend himself. Now let's look at our last one in 56. What's like the final straw for Ricky? In 56, Ricky tingled all over with rage and hatred at this. And then Nag's head came through the sluice, and his 5 feet of cold body followed it. Angry as he was, Rikki Tikki was very frightened. Oh, we hear that word again that we annotated back in question 1. As he saw the size of the big cobra, Nag coiled himself up, raised his head, and looked into the bathroom in the dark. And Ricky could see his eyes glitter. So Ricky's hiding in the bathroom. He's afraid, but he's also has these feelings of rage and hatred. What's going on? I had not thought of that, said Nag. I will go, but there is no need that we should hunt for Rikki Tikki afterward. I will kill the big man and his wife and the child if I can, and come away quietly. Then the bungalow will be empty and Ricky will go. Notice, so Ricky is super upset because Nag is planning to kill the family that has taken Ricky in. He has rage and hatreds, and he's frightened. Why is he frightened? Well, Nag is this huge cobra. We know how the story ends in the end. Ricky kills Nag and kills Nagina also, even though he's frightened. That theme, overcoming fear, gets repeated here. The theme of overcoming fear is repeated once again. Ricky is frightened of Nag, but still has the courage to fight him. Ricky ends up killing Nag to protect his family. Really leads us into a big theme for this story. A theme of the story could be risking your life is one of the, I'll say, greatest acts of courage and love. I actually want to go back here first, and I want to say Ricky does not let fear rule him. Overcomes this fear of this 5-foot-long snake. Acts very valiant, to use one of our words. And with that, let me create the notes. Let you look at it one more time. The theme of overcoming fear is repeated once again. Ricky is frightened of Nag, but still has the courage to fight him. Ricky ends up killing Nag to protect his family. Ricky does not let fear rule him. A theme of the story could be risking your life, as Ricky does, is one of the greatest acts of courage. Ricky definitely shows courage and love for the family. And with that, let me exit off. So why is he so determined again to destroy Nag and Nagina? Well, at the end, tries to kill the family. A little bit earlier, they try to kill him. And before that, why does the issue even begin? Well, because they're killing the little baby birds. In the end, they're these huge cobras. We do not let fear rule us. And at the end of the story, we know Ricky is successful, but does not become too proud of himself. So I see my little mongoose in this coming of age story grow up, gets taken in by a family, acts like a little kid at the beginning. If we remember back in, I want to say it was Purple, we see him acting very childlike, but in the end has to grow up and protect his family. Definitely shows us a coming of age story and really covers multiple themes for us. With that, guys, good luck on your test. To get out of this, what you're going to want to do is close down split screen mode. And one final little hint or, help. When you click on write, if you click split screen again, on the left-hand side will show up with your annotations. That way you can review your annotations as you write your response. When done, please press submit. As always, proofread your work. And again, good luck, guys.